We're coming off the back of the premiere episode of AEW Rampage in the Steel City, which means it's time for another WrestlePlanet news update as we look at the Rampage results from last night. AEW President Tony Khan discusses free agents in wrestling. CM Punk and Jon Moxley are mentioned on WWE SmackDown. And is Kenny Omega done with Impact Wrestling? All that and more coming up in today's video, but first... The first ever episode of AEW Rampage opened with an Impact World Championship match with Kenny Omega defending his title against former two-time TNA champion Christian Cage. The match concluded after a referee distraction by Don Callis, which allowed time for the Young Bucks to sneak down and slide a chair into the ring. However, the interference backfired as Omega attempted a one-winged angel onto the steel, but Christian instead reversed it, driving Omega's head into the chair with a kill switch for the 1-2-3. This marks Omega's first singles loss of 2021 and ends his 4-month reign as champion. This also means his belt collection has dropped from 3 to 2. Christian Cage is now a 3-time Impact World Champion and is set to make his first title defense next Friday at Impact Emergence. Kenny Omega has yet another title defense tonight at Triple Mania, where he defends his AAA Mega Championship against fellow AEW star Andrade El Idolo in Mexico City. Omega and Christian are also set to clash once again on September 5th, this time for the AEW World title at the All Out pay-per-view. The second match of the night saw the popular Fuego del Sol challenge for not only the TNT Championship, but an AEW contract if he were able to get the victory. However, it was Miro that came out on top, as God's favourite champion made quick work of the challenger, finishing him off with the game over submission in just 2 minutes. Despite the loss, Tony Khan handed a contract to Del Sol's best friend Sammy Guevara, who made his way to the ring to declare he is all elite. The signing was then confirmed on Twitter, with Fuego receiving his very own All Elite graphic. Fuego has a record of 1 win and 50 losses in AEW so far, but he is still one of the most popular lower card talents on the roster. DARBY, ALLIN and Sting were then shown in the rafters before a video package aired hyping up next week's First Dance edition of AEW Rampage. This showed DARBY's promo where he called out the best in the world, which is clearly aimed at CM Punk for next week. This seems to be teasing that DARBY and Punk will meet next week on Rampage at the United Center in Chicago. Hometown Britt Baker then main evented the show with her AEW Women's title on the line against Red Velvet of the Nightmare Family. The Pittsburgh crowd were massively behind the champion throughout the night, which helped her finish the challenger with a lockjaw. As Baker celebrated with her title, she turned to Velvet to drop her once again before Chris Statlander made the save. This led to the AEW return of Jamie Hayter. She was then announced on Twitter as an official signing and seems to be filling the bodyguard role that Britt Baker teased a few weeks ago. Overall, Rampage was a fun watch and the 1-hour format definitely helped with that. Nothing seemed to drag and it was a nice bite-sized action-packed wrestling show. Next week is bound to be even better with the expected debut of CM Punk. AEW President Tony Khan appeared on Busted Open Radio this week to hype up last night's episode of AEW Rampage. During the conversation, Khan discussed the excitement in wrestling surrounding the free agency market, with CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar, Bray Wyatt amongst many other names currently creating a lot of media buzz surrounding where they could end up. Tony revealed excitement surrounding free agents was part of his business plan and said, "There's real competition and free agency is definitely bringing new fans in. That was always part of my business plan for AEW. The free agent cycle that hasn't really existed in a meaningful way in professional wrestling in 2 decades would help lift the sport. Help lift interest in wrestling and bring fans back." And I think we're starting to see that, and I think we'll continue to see that throughout the summer and the rest of the year. That's one of the things I'm really excited about. Of course, back in the day, online forums were filled with talk of potential jumps between WCW and WWF, and up until now, there's never really been a competitor that compete for the big names. I mean, if Daniel Bryan does indeed jump to AEW, that would mean he's headlined WrestleMania and joined a competitor in the same year. I don't have the exact stats, but that must be a rarity, especially in recent history. I did recently make a video discussing the hottest free agents in wrestling today, and at this point, most of them have been snapped up. So if you'd like me to make an updated version, let me know in the comments down below. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you scroll down and drop a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head towards 20,000 subscribers. But now that you've done that, let's get on with the rest of the video. AEW bound CM Punk appeared in an interview with TV Insider this week to promote his upcoming appearance on the Heels TV show on the Starz network. The topic of modern day wrestling came up, with Punk stating that he prefers old school wrestling, explaining today's landscape needs a kick, although he feels that there are wrestlers out there who are on their way to doing just that. And he said, "I think the older stuff is better. I think it's partly unfortunate that WWE owns the super good libraries in pro wrestling. That stuff is classic, and they don't even put it on their network. They are sitting on it. I want to watch Austin Idol versus Jerry Lawler in Memphis. I do think the landscape of pro wrestling in general really needs a kick in the dick. I think we are about there, and I think there are people out there stirring the pot and causing trouble in a good way. It's a fun world, there is nothing like it. Pro wrestling gets crapped on by a number of people, but when it's done on a high level and it's really good, there is nothing better." Perhaps wrestling will get that kick when Punk debuts in AEW in the United Center, as well as Bryan Danielson at the Arthur Ashe Stadium next month, which should see us head into a new era. And speaking of Punk, he and Jon Moxley were both mentioned on last night's episode of WWE SmackDown during a segment between Roman Reigns and John Cena. The two men are heading towards their main event clash at SummerSlam in 1 week's time, and during their verbal joust, both men cut deep. First, Roman made reference to John Cena's ex-fiancée after comparing Cena's same old routine with the missionary position every single night, and said, "20 years of missionary was good enough for you, but it wasn't good enough for Nikki Bella. I'm gonna smash you and send you back to Hollywood, so take us home, kid." Cena later made reference to Roman's old stablemates Seth Rollins as well as Dean Ambrose, who now of course works in AEW as Jon Moxley. All three are former members of The Shield, with Cena saying, "You've been protected, Roman. You've been protected by the Shield. Hell, you almost ruined Seth Rollins, and you ran Dean Ambrose out of WWE." Cena continued, this time making reference to AEW-bound CM Punk and his win over Cena at the Money in the Bank 2011 pay-per-view. "Roman, you're gonna put on a hell of a show, but I'm just gonna hang in there for 1, 2, 3. And then I'm gonna take your title, jump the barricade and run out of the Allegiant Stadium as fast as I can. I may even blow you a kiss goodbye." Punk himself then seemingly responded to the promo on Instagram, posting an image of Lord Voldemort from the Harry Potter series, who is referred to as He Who Must Not Be Named. In the promo, Cena didn't mention Punk by name, but it's clear who the line was about. And finally, it looks like the former Impact World Champion Kenny Omega may be done with Impact Wrestling, at least for now. As we mentioned earlier in the video, Omega dropped the title in the very first match in AEW Rampage history, and Impact EVP Scott D'Amore has took to Twitter to bid a farewell to Omega and said, "It feels like the world is right again. After tonight's AEW Rampage, the Impact World title belongs to Christian Cage. It's time to bid adieu to Kenny Omega and Don Callis. It's time to say goodbye and good night." Both Impact and AEW have posted post-show footage of Christian discussing his third Impact title win, who stated that the belt is back home where it belongs. Cage said, "I'm pretty beat up, but it's a pretty surreal moment, to be honest with you. I put myself kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit, where I said I was gonna, without a doubt, beat Kenny for the Impact Championship, and I was gonna be in the Impact Zone this coming week, and I would look like pretty much of an idiot if I didn't follow through on that, right? But it feels damn good, and like I said, my roots run deep with Impact, and I thought it was my duty to win this back for the Impact fans, and because this company means so much to me. So it's back home where it belongs." Christian now must get past Brian Myers, who won the #1 Contenders Battle Royal on a recent episode of Impact Wrestling, with the two meeting next week at Impact Emergence, which will be available on their Impact Plus streaming service on Friday, August 20th. And before you go, why not check out my video where I discuss 5 ways that AEW could book the debut of CM Punk.